Hello again, and welcome back to The Price of Time. My name is Luke Tatum. Today, we're going to be doing a wonderful episode with Alenka Kyslik. I'm recording this after the episode is already done. You see, we had a power outage here in the middle of our recording, and so this episode was actually done on 2 different days. We did what we could to make sure the transition is seamless, but you will notice perhaps a couple of repeated points or slight jostling as we get into the second day's recording from the first day's recording. Anyway, I think the episode turned out great. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much. Hello again, and welcome back to The Price of Time. This episode, I'm joined by Alenka Kyslik. Alenka is the founder of the SAHA Collective. With over a decade of experience in the corporate world, Alenka has decided to build a business to help others who have not found answers in conventional medicine. Alenka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for being here. I'm very excited to hear, more details. You and I, as always on these shows, we had a little bit of a pre-show, and so I know only the vaguest sense of what we might get into, and I like to leave it unventured territory so that we can, I can learn live and y'all can see the effect it has on me live, whatever. And so it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know what we're going to talk about today, but why don't you tell me what is the one thing, the one moment in your life that we're going to kind of focus on and use as a springboard today?
Yeah, so I think one of them for sure is going to be the moment I was tired, not paying attention, I missed a step and stepped off a curb. It's never a good story, and tore apart my ankle to shreds.
Ew. I mean, that doesn't sound fun. Okay, so just walking along in the city or whatever, and just stepped right off.
Oh no, it was in a friend's gated community. I was visiting. I was walking my dog, who wasn't. There were too many squirrels. She has a very high prey drive. And she wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing on said walk. The squirrels were too, and I was just very frustrated. Wasn't paying attention. And missed a step.
Gosh. Okay. So you tore your ankle to shreds. Tell me about that. What happened?
Yeah. So I stepped off that curb, and I knew immediately something was wrong. When you've done something enough times, I've sprained my ankles enough times, I knew something was off. I hobbled my way back first to the garbage can because I, had a bag of disposal that needed to happen, and then back to my friend's place who I was visiting. And if any of you know, in post-acute injury, there's a lot of adrenaline that pumps through your body. So the pain isn't there yet. It comes in, a little while later. So I get back and it's starting to swell. And I'm telling my friend, I'm like, this is bad. I really need to go to urgent care. And I'm like, you need to take care. I can't take the dog with me. I get there. It's 10 minutes away. The side of my foot has swollen up the size of a golf ball. And it was to the point where, you walk in and the receptionist is, gasps and brings over ice pack and a wheelchair, which, that was a first. I had the gasp before, but that was a first for that. So I got an x-ray. There's no break. I knew that. I then got told that, hey, just put on this light brace. It'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't think so. This much swelling this quickly, that doesn't feel right to me. So I book an appointment with an orthopedic surgeon that I had known. I'm grateful I have health insurance that I was able to do that. And I get into the appointment. They're like, oh yeah, it's bad, but whatever. And I'm like, no, this is worse than normal. I want an MRI. And they're like, well, we don't know if insurance will cover it. Well, I was like, I'll make it happen. This is important. Get the MRI back. The doctor calls me, which is never a good sign. Asked me to come in, and it was torn a couple of ligaments, smashed my bones together, and there was fragmentation between the bones and then bleeding in the bones and then tendonitis on the opposite side of the foot, like the opposite side of the sprain. And the doctor was like, oh, okay, so yeah, with this new information, which all that bone fragmentation, et cetera, does not show up on an x-ray, with this new information, you cannot put weight on this foot for up to 3 months. So a very different diagnosis than, oh, if it doesn't hurt, then keep walking on it.
Right. Yeah, put some ice on it, put your leg up, it'll be okay. Yeah, no worries. And so, okay, so you had kind of an instinctual sort of insight into that. You're just saying, oh, yeah, I think this is worse than you're portraying it to be. And so, a good thing you had that insight, right? I mean, and fought for that and kind of advocated for yourself in that situation. Now, this was a big catalyst for you, right? It was something that led to a lot of changes in your life. That's kind of why we're honing in on this. And so I want to learn about after and kind of the treatment and all that. But what was your life like before this, such that, this was such a big moment for you? I mean, obviously that's a big inconvenience. That would be an inconvenience for anybody. But, beyond that, what was your life like before, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I had mentioned, you had mentioned I had been in corporate for a long time. And I was always an overachiever. At that, a year prior to me tearing apart my ankle, I had actually burnt out because I had pushed myself too hard. And so and that turned into a lot of things, and I'm more than happy to dive into that. But it also meant that I had to learn to be a better advocate for myself, and it meant that I had to learn to listen intuitively to my body, which is really hard when your whole life you've been told, "Oh, you're tired, just push through it," or "Oh, like just keep pushing through it," and just keep pushing through it works to a point, and then it doesn't. And so I had finally, at the point of when I had hurt my ankle, been like, "Okay, like I'm recovering from this. I can finally feel like myself. I have the energy to do the things, go about my day." I had started going back to the gym, which had been closed down for a while with with lockdown anyways. But I started going to the gym. I had started socializing, seeing my friends. I had the energy to do all of those things. And then this happened, and it was like an immediate, oh, you're not walking. You're not doing, like you can't move. And it's really hard when you haven't gone through something like that. But when you have to look at every step that you take, first of all, in crutches, it's terrifying. But then when you can actually start to put weight on it, and like every little slant in the road, like, when you're walking down a sidewalk and there's driveways and those are on an angle, I would have to ask friends, hey, can we switch sides so I don't have to walk on that angle? Because that's going to irritate my foot, and like it's every single step, not enjoying the world around you because you're staring at the ground. It's incredible how much it impacts you. And not only that, but there's this underlying fear associated with, if I misstep, I'm going to restart this process again. And not only restart, but it's worse when you've already injured it.
Yeah. I mean, so what kind of recovery time was it? I mean, they told you 3 months initially, it sounds like, but I mean, what was that actually like in practice?
Yeah. So it was 3 months of not putting any weight on it. Look up a knee scooter. That was my best friend. Had a basket. It was great. Had my laptop in it. So that was the first 3 months. And then I started doing physical therapy, and that was going pretty well, or so I thought. And then about 4 months in, it was hot. It was the end of summer. I wanted to go into a lake. I had my brace on, but I slipped on a rock getting into the lake, and I knew something was off. Went to the doctor. Yeah, sure enough, I retore it. But at this point, I already knew. Right. And so I continued doing physical therapy and what the doctor told me. And then it happened again a few months later. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on? And so I started doing my own research because I'm like, I'm doing what the doctor's telling me to do. I'm going to physical therapy. I'm resting it. I'm icing it. I'm doing all of those things. And it's still like, why is this still happening? And I learned through a thing called a bioresonance screening, which was validated also by my regular blood tests, that I actually had low vitamin D. In which, if you know a little bit of vitamin D, it also relates to your energy levels and all sorts of things. But it does relate to your soft tissue healing. And so I started taking that. I got a blood test a little while later, still low. And I was so frustrated at this point. Nobody told me that vitamin D, along with a couple other ones, are fat soluble. And what that means is you need some sort of fat to be able to absorb it, like either you've eaten before or there's different ways of doing it. But so that, and I was like, because at that point I still re-injured a couple more times, right? We're like a year in now. And so I started to like really take control and like do my own research, talk to people around me and say like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And so some people suggested different forms of physical therapy. I started doing research into what now I understand is hypermobility, and some people call it double jointed, right? And that means that the connective tissues in your bodies are looser, which, you know, connective tissues are ligaments and tendons. And so that means the healing process is longer, but nobody, you know, this isn't common knowledge that people talk about. And so I started going,
I didn't
yeah,
know
right.
that.
Like
No.
I didn't know that either. And so what that means is that like you're already looser, you're more predisposed to it. So then you have to do more things to be careful of it, and the recovery is longer. And there's certain type of physical therapy that's going to exacerbate it. Like if you're stretching it, like I'm already flexy, I don't need to be more stretchy. Right. And so, and like, there's just so many things that I started like learning and putting together, but this took me a full, I want to say year and a half till I finally had a handle on it. And I, you know, read a lot of PubMed articles, and I like really dove into the science of it, and transformed my life. Like I stopped drinking almost entirely because I'm like, even a little bit of inhibition and not paying attention to that sidewalk could end really poorly. I prioritized a lot of my spending to go towards all of these different types of appointments, supplements, et cetera, because that's what was helping me. And it's incredible how much of a change that took, but also like the time it took and the energy it took. And I was like, I can't believe like I have the ability to do this. A lot of people would just suck it up and, you know, wear an ankle brace for the rest of their lives. And like my muscles atrophied. You could tell looking at my two legs which one was injured based on the size of the muscle, which is crazy, right? And I just wasn't willing to accept that.
Right. I mean, you said it was a year before. Well, I mean, so over a year, I guess, before you actually really were able to get out of the brace and everything. And I mean, so yeah, that's a long time not to use muscles, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and that's just like, yeah, getting out of the brace and then I would do something again. So it was really a year and a half until I like actually could start walking without the brace. And then, I mean, we can get into it later on, but I pushed myself too hard because I finally thought I was good. I broke the
right,
other
right.
ankle.
Well, it's easy to
Yeah.
do that.
So
Yeah, it's really easy to do
yeah.
that. Oh, you broke the
Yeah, I
other
broke the
ankle?
other
No
ankle.
way. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So we will get into that.
yeah.
Vitamin D, though, I mean, what a simple thing. I mean, I take vitamin D. I take a Zyrtec because it controls my allergies. You know, I've always had allergies, and it does a great job. I don't need anything fancier than that. I don't feel the need to experiment with anything else, right? It's a pretty basic, non-dangerous drug, right? And so I take Zyrtec, and then I take a vitamin D capsule, and that's only a relatively recent thing for me. I mean, I do that. It's maybe been a couple of years that I've been taking that, and what a great thing that's been, you know, like I feel great or better, you know, all the time than I used to. And my background, like I was in retail and all this stuff. And I used to joke with people, it's like, you know, I have a hard time going to sleep, but the strategy I've figured out, it's so great, is you just stay on the brink of total exhaustion all the time. And then when you hit a mattress, you're out cold, right? It's so great. And so, I mean, that's horrible, but that, you know, that's my coping joke that I would make. And or maybe I could have just taken some vitamin D. I mean, that would have been good. But I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, when we don't know. And I think that's like, it's such a lot of the times we're just like, oh, hey, like you have this problem, like slap a coffee on top of it, or like, you know, whatever it is. But it doesn't like come to the root issue. And what I found out is like, I had a lot of imbalances in my blood work. And if I had known that and be able to address it, then that probably would have changed a lot of things for me a lot earlier on.
Yeah, yeah. And so the bioresonance scan, that's what you call it, right? Um, Tell me more about that, because I'm vaguely familiar. I've heard the term before, but I mean, tell me, I guess, if you can, I mean, more detail about those, what that's like.
Yeah. So I'm no expert. And this is just like one of the things I tried. What I will say is I was at the point where I didn't like, I was like, anyone give me a suggestion, I will take it. Like, even if I don't understand it or don't believe in it, like, I don't care. I'm just, there's always a point where you're like, I need help in whatever form that comes in. So a friend of my mom said, like, hey, you go to this clinic, they have this thing. And there was also like DNA tests and stuff, but I was like, I didn't feel like that was, going to help. Maybe it would have, what do I know? Never did it. But this thing was like the new thing. And so, like I said, I don't really understand it. It is 2 copper like cylinders that you held in each hand. I had a wire on each one that went into a machine, and you just sat there for 20 minutes, and it sent through different vibrations, like different frequencies into your body, and it used that to test all sorts of things. And so like some of the things, it was crazy. Exactly. Like, I don't really understand it. And then it was like, oh, you need spinal adjustments. And then it was like, oh, are you feeling, there was different like emotional states, I think exhausted, like, part of this burnout, stress, etc. My brother's wedding was in the middle of all this. I was trying to create a budget for them because they hadn't done that. Whole nother story. Right. Like, there was a lot of, like other stress factors going on. One of the things, and so it brought up certain types of imbalances, and it actually brought up like low antioxidants, which, based on some other blood tests I did, actual like blood samples taken and sent to a lab, that was very accurate. It was just really interesting. And the doctor, when she like looked through it, she's like, oh, your foot that you've injured, your toe is flat. And I'm like, what does that mean? So she pulls off her own shoe, and she's like, this is what your foot is supposed to look like. And then I pulled off my shoe to like look at, and it's like, yeah, the way that my toe was, hitting the floor wasn't like at a curve. I don't know how to explain it with.
That's crazy. Okay. From a copper tube or whatever. That's crazy.
I can't pretend to understand it. It gave me answers that nobody else was able to give. So
okay. And so this is just something that like certain medical providers offer, or I mean, because I don't go to the doctor anymore, so like it's not like I would know if they were offering it, but it's not something that ever has been brought up before. I mean, my previous doctor, when we lived in Texas, it was like, oh, you're feeling kind of bad, here, take a steroid shot. And that was my interaction. And so, and those are great. I mean, they make me feel great. I'm kidding right now. But, yeah. So, I mean, how would I stumble across this if I didn't have a friend of a friend, or, something like that?
Well, yeah. So, which is the whole point of why I'm building what I'm building, because like the friend of the friend thing is like the problem, right? You don't know somebody who can help you, and you're kind of stuck being miserable. Yeah. So I've looked them up for like, I was just actually speaking with someone in Texas. She's like, oh, my husband's had these back issues. We can't figure it out. And I'm like, I am no health expert, but I just absorb information like a sponge. So like I told her about the bioresonance screening. I'm like, hey, like if they haven't been able to find an answer, maybe this will. Like I know of some people who it's been able to give them things they wouldn't know, have found otherwise. So it's usually naturopathic doctors that, have it, but you can look it up and look it up locally, and usually you'll be able to search it. And so that's just for, and like a friend of mine, like her son had like these issues his entire life. And then by the time they were 3, they found this, and that actually helped them find it. So I'm not saying it's like it's more of a, like, it'll give you the state of the state, if you will. But it won't necessarily like for me, I still needed to do a lot of things to help fix it. And like, I think even with supplements, that can help to a point. Often for me, it was actually a lot of diet changes as well. Like I did another type of blood test, which I briefly mentioned, that did a more in-depth analysis of what I was deficient in. And then when I looked up what all those things do in the body, it actually made a lot of sense to me. And those things that I was deficient in, like, made a lot of sense in terms of like why I wasn't healing. Like when you don't have enough antioxidants in your body isn't able to heal itself. It isn't able to replenish. And so what I did is I actually changed based on, so this is a certain type of blood test that I just go to them. I like them. It's called Restore Hyper Wellness. They're across the country, and they do carry a couple different blood tests this one was like, hey, these are the types of antioxidants that are the most potent for your blood. I was like, oh, that's really helpful. Also hilarious, because My background is Eastern European, and like I don't taste garlic in a lot of things, and garlic was like one of the top ones that came back. Is it was just funny that like certain things that are in your background, I guess, are effective. There's a reason why we have them. So
Yeah, so I didn't even know there were different types of antioxidants.
I mean, I didn't either. Like all I know is marketing of like blueberries are great antioxidants. You know what I mean? And like that was the extent of my knowledge. So when I did the blood test and some of the stuff came back, the first thing I thought was my mom is going to love this because like Eastern European mom put garlic in everything. Like we used to eat raw garlic as kids. Like there are pictures of us in a Costa Rica airport eating garlic like cloves because we were all getting sick and we had a red eye flight. Like this is my family, right? So when I found out that like actually for my blood it is very effective, I thought that was incredible. And so now I have way too much garlic in my kitchen, but there's no downside.
Now, my wife, she loves garlic. Okay, and so I I used to think it was just nonsense for a period of time, but whenever she was feeling sick or whatever, she would take echinacea and she would take a bunch of garlic supplements. And like that was it. And it's like, it's fine. I'm going to be fine. And she would just get over it. And it worked, And so I just had, at a certain point, I was like, oh, okay, I guess there's something to that. I can't just take a garlic pill and feel a lot better, but she can. And so maybe that is sort of a roundabout way of justifying this type of analysis. I don't know, maybe it isn't, but it's cool, right? I mean, so I don't know, I love that there's more holistic approaches. I love that there's more kind of just eat better, right? It's like we've in our household, right, for a long time we felt like, well, if we just give ourselves the right nutrients and we, understand a few more things about how this works together, even if we don't have a complete picture, you give your body what it needs and it can probably take care of a lot of things. We don't need to go to the ER for any little like sniffle or whatever. And so that's been a really, I would say, good move for us. I feel like we're in great health, especially since we moved away from cities and we kind of live out in the country and stuff, being out in nature. Like I have severe allergies and I'm surrounded by cedar trees, which I am allergic to. And I do great. I do great all the time. And I don't understand it, but come to find out, there are male and female trees, cedar trees, and the female trees absorb a lot of the stuff out of the air, which helps me to still be able to breathe out here, right? But if you live in a city, they don't plant female trees because female trees produce a lot of like extra stuff that'll fall onto the road and it requires more cleanup and stuff. And so you don't get that. And you have this like negative air quality situation. And so, but I didn't know that for years and years and years, right? And now it's like, wow, that's so cool. I can live around cedar trees and it's not killing me. I don't have to take Benadryl.
Yeah, when we let nature just like plant itself,
right.
You know what I mean? Like we're not super, then it does things that we learn about, decades later when there's already huge trees or, whatever it is growing and then causing, grateful I don't have allergies, but for those that do, it's
be grateful.
There's,
be grateful.
I'm recently learning about as a more like, I don't want to say homeopathic, but like maybe it is. I don't know. Different ways of like helping with allergies. Because I think when we are like, the antioxidants is one example, but when we're like, hey, like this is the only way that things work, but then effectively it's not working. Do you know what I mean? Like if like it's not actually helping, then maybe that's when, if you choose to, and that is every person's choice, like that's where there's opportunity to learn about something that could make a difference in your life.
Right. No, I totally agree. And so I guess this is maybe a good pivot point, right? We can say, okay, there's these problems, there's these alternative ways of figuring things out, there's stumbling into knowledge, and wow, that really changed my life, but it seems like a pure chance. How would I have even learned that? It's not like you take a class in school or something and they teach you, how to figure out what kind of pathways you should follow for learning about your own personal health. The medical system, and don't let me just make commentary about the medical practices in the United States for all day, but it's very one size fits all, right? And it's medical school in a lot of cases is here's how you prescribe allopathic medicine to people and why you give different drugs, right? And there's very little room for some of these other interpretations, right? And other approaches and other treatment methodologies, modalities. And so your system, your product, your idea here is SAHA, and I want to know more about what that is, because I feel like it's a treatment for this systemic problem in a big way, and it's very exciting. And so tell us more about that. What's that all about?
Yeah, I could talk about this for hours, and I have. So I kind of want to comment on a couple of things you said, because I think they're really valuable. So I agree that the way that Western medicine, generally speaking, works, it's a one size fits most, right? Which, I do not want to understate how incredible it is that we can do certain things or live the length of our lives has exponentially increased. And that, there are certain things that just didn't exist before that, child mortality rates have gone up like crazy over the last couple hundred years. And same thing with birthing mother rates. There are still tons of room for improvement there. But the fact that you can schedule a C-section, it's not a big deal. That's insane. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Again, it's not a perfect solution in many ways, and I'm not the expert to speak on that. But what I'm saying is I think Western medicine is incredible. But it has limits, like everything. Everything has limits, right? And what I have found so interesting is that there are so many people with so much expertise that exist in the world. But the problem is, if you don't know someone who knows someone, or you don't know someone, you're not going to find them. Even with the way the internet works, it's better than it was, but it's still very hard and inaccessible. And for example, I found for my specific issues with my ankles, a physical therapist who is exactly what I need. I've been on that waiting list, and this is paying out of pocket, and it's not cheap. For 8 months, I've been on that waiting list. I'm sure someone else exists. I just haven't found them, right? So how can I find other people to help and connect? And I think that's where SAHA comes into play. So the purpose of SAHA is to create a system where, for those people who have not found some sort of answers in conventional medicine that help them or should be helping them. So if you have not found answers in conventional medicine, we are connecting you with experts who have the similar and same values. So those experts, when I say values, I mean things like, maybe you're the person who's I just need relief. I am not feeling great, and I need to feel better a little bit so that I can have a little energy to do some of the things I know I need to do, but I just don't have the energy to it, right? So management. So they can help you with that. Or some people who are they're experts in helping you get the work done. But if you don't have the energy to get the work done, you're not going to be able to do the work, right? I think this is something that we often beat ourselves up and say hey, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And I have one great friend who was stop saying should. Be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. Yeah, you could be doing that, but you're not in a place where you can. So should is just beating yourself up. Let's find a way to give you the space and the energy in order to be able to do those things. Or maybe the things that you want to do are just you're not there yet. It's you're trying to run a marathon without training. Let's walk a mile first, right? How can we set this up in a way that meets you where you're at today? So our matchmaking system does a few things, and I'm very excited about, and I have exciting news for that. But our matchmaking system meets you where you're at today, right? So where are you at in terms of your journey? Do you need relief? Do you need to figure out what the root cause is? Do you need treatment options? What is that? Treatment management options that can look different. Another part of the matchmaking system is values. I'm jokingly calling it a woo-woo scale, but I will come up with a better name with it, I promise. So, I need to come up with something better, but that's like on the list of to-dos, it's there. So it's a sliding scale right now. It's 4 points, on one end being like conventional, traditional, and on the other end being open to the universe, if you will, right? And so like conventional, traditional would be more things like chiropractic, acupuncture, massage therapy, nutritionists, dietitians, physical therapy, that type of thing. And on the other side of the spectrum are things like Reiki, things like muscle tension testing, things that are like more, not everyone's open to that, which is totally fine. Right? And you shouldn't be matched with someone who like you don't align with what they're saying. Like it just doesn't, you're like, that's cool. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't believe it. Why would I match you with that? It's not effective.
Right. And then you leave, you pay your appointment visit fee, and you didn't get any value out of it, and you wasted time and money and energy. And especially if you're dealing with like a chronic pain situation or something like that, where it's a big deal to go out of the house and go see a doctor or whatever, type of practitioner you're seeing. It's like, oh, wow, that's very demotivating, right? Let's go try again and see if this person is any better than the last person that I didn't like, And so what you're doing, I mean, what you're describing is such an amazingly huge time saver and pain and suffering saver, if I can say that, then going and trying out a bunch of different people. Like if you need counseling, well, it's like, okay, there's going to be some people that are more maybe drill sergeant like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, get it going, make it happen, come back. And then there's going to be people on the polar opposite end of that. And so being able to, even just a rough approximation, being able to sort through that in a little bit of a way before you go in. Like, because normally all you have is a website. You go to their website and it's like, wow, this looks potentially maybe good. And it tells you what they do, who they are, like what degrees they have maybe. And that's like it. And then it's book a consultation. Do you take my insurance? That kind of thing. And so, I mean, thankfully, I'm not dealing with something like that at this time, but I have had like a chronic like abdominal pain thing that took months to figure out. And it was just go see this person. Okay, they don't know either. Cool. Go see the next person. They don't have any ideas either. That's great. And it's like, wow, life is not so good at that time, I'm a very positive person, but it starts to wear on you. And so I'm doing a lot of talking, but that's so cool. That it's not even a question. It's just, that's so cool to be able to remove some of those steps because it's not fun. It's not fun to go try out doctors, and it costs you money.
And like, it doesn't feel good, like you said, to come out of an appointment and not have more answers than you had going in, And I find that's the case. Like I had my, hopefully last doctor's appointment yesterday with my orthopedic surgeon for my ankle issues. And like, well, if you feel like you need to come back, you can come back. But like, if you're good, you're good. You know your body better at this point. I'm like, well, this is like, now at this point I have worked hard to figure it out, but that, we're 2 years in of constant, and like I'm in a privileged place in that I have been able to search for other people to help, but not everybody has that time or energy or money. And I've had to make a lot of changes in my finances to be able to afford this, let's be clear. But like, it's been worth it for me. But what if there was a system that skipped all of that and got you to like within a couple of appointments, you find answers? Maybe it is one appointment, but I don't want to promise that, it's perfect right away. Like we got to work on making it better. And I think it's so important. I want to talk about another piece that I people don't think to ask. And so I want to make sure I include it. Is so for me, the way that I've seen a lot of these systems of care work is that if you have the insurance, the money, you have a much likelier chance of getting access to care that is helpful for you, right? But if you don't have that, you're out of luck. So part of what SAHA is doing, which is one of the core ethos, is there is a transaction fee based on each appointment booked. And that goes to pay for the platform, payment processing fees, all of, the non-fun stuff. But a portion of the proceeds will go towards a fund, and that fund will be available for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford services, which is really important because a lot of the providers that get into the space, they get into it to help people, and then they tend to either reduce their rates in order to make that happen, or they do a lot of pro bono work, which is great until it starts to step on their ability to take care of themselves and their family, right? When they kind of sacrifice too much, and then it's hard for them to pay their bills, or it's hard for them to take care of themselves, and then they're not in the best place to take care of you. So how can we account for that? We're building a fund to help with that.
Is that a separate, like a nonprofit type entity that you're establishing, or is it, you don't have to tell me all the details, it's just personal curiosity, but is it a separate thing that you're just kind of donating to, and then that's going to operate in tandem, or what's that set up like, if you don't mind?
I'm thinking that's the case. I am not an accountant, and so I want to work with one to make sure that I do it in, checking all the boxes.
Yeah. So don't let me pull you into accountancy world, That's not, I shouldn't do that. But
no, that's what I've heard is the right way to do it. But I want to make sure that, I am correctly doing it, and I haven't hired one yet because we're not bringing in revenue. So there's no reason for it yet.
Right. So what's the, I guess, you told me it's a transaction model, based on booking the funds, but kind of what is the user experience, I guess? What's the process? You say, okay, I have a problem. I'm not satisfied with traditional solutions or solutions in my area that I'm aware of, or whatever. And then, okay, I create an account, put in an email address, and then what happens?
No, this is an excellent question. And actually, I'm glad of the way things have turned out in terms of recording this episode, because I have an update that I would have not had originally. So I'm excited about it. And actually, I haven't announced this anywhere publicly yet, so this might be the first place. So part of building a startup is iterating and making sure you're testing and getting validation and all of that. And I think and I can talk about that separately, but in the last couple of weeks, what I have decided to go forward with in conjunction with conversations with different people is to build an MVP. So we will build a full-fledged product, but we want to test some of the core functionality first and make sure that it makes sense, that people respond to it, and that it is doing what it is intended to do. We're defining exactly the scope of it, but the matchmaking is the core that we want to test, right? So this matchmaking system in terms of connecting you with the right people is what we're going to be testing. We're not going to be charging for it. People are going to go to the matchmaking system will do its thing, and then you will be connected directly to wherever providers are already taking bookings, just because that's a lot of additional software building. So we're going to skip that piece, but we want to test the matchmaking piece. So the reason I say that is right now, in the next few months, we're going to have matchmaking, and you can connect directly to providers. And we're going to run that test we're going to decide that amount of time, but it will get closed down before the site goes live. But we'll use the matchmaking learnings to build. And then the site, eventually, to your initial question, what that will look like when you get on the site is you can either come in and say, I don't know what I need. And you can fill out a few questions, which is the matchmaking system that will be live in a little bit. And then it'll say hey, here are some options. So this is, on the full site, here are some options. The options will be about 5 to 7 options is the goal. You can look in terms of decision-making science and decision paralysis and all of that, but that is the thinking behind it. 5 to 7. It will include, the names, the titles, the education, the price range, the time zone. I had an epiphany on time zone this morning, because I think time zone it's when you're dealing with the world, I think it's really important that we give access to that, because there's so much more when you have the world at your fingertips, right? And then you can book directly on the platform all of the management of the the reminders, the calendar invite, the payment, everything is managed on the platform. You can message your provider directly on the platform, right? If you have questions beforehand, if you want clarification on something, etc., you can message them on the platform. And then when you go on to book the appointment, there'll be a link in the calendar invite, email notifications, etc. You can join if it's a virtual appointment. If it's an in-person appointment, that's a little different. You can join on your phone, on your computer, wherever. You have the appointment closes out, you get to provide feedback. The provider also provides feedback on both the experience with the platform and maybe you did or didn't like them. Who knows, right? Like, I want to know that. I want to know that you liked your experience or didn't like it. And then you can book again if you want or not. Like, that is up to you. So that's kind of the flow, if you will, of what the experience will look like. There's lots of details in there, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it'll evolve and all that. You mentioned MVP, right? So a minimum viable product, and just kind of getting something out there. And that's my philosophy for business stuff. It's like, well, let's do it, and then we can make it better after we start gathering feedback and all that. And so, I mean, absolutely 100%, approve of that. Now, something that might be cool, and I'm just giving unsolicited advice here, would be, okay, you have your sliding scales, for the quiz and for both the provider and the, client to fill in. And obviously that's the matching system. But maybe for the providers, maybe they have a text box to kind of explain their answer. You know what I mean? Say, okay, we're on this end because of this and this and this, just kind of to give an additional layer of, okay, I think I'm comfortable with using this person, right? It might be a way to distinguish yourself on the platform as a provider to kind of give some extra clarity. Obviously, you can't, I guess you could with AI or something, have it like scan that and try to compute some kind of something, but that's complicated. I wouldn't recommend, doing all that right off the bat.
We're going to do some fun stuff behind the scenes, but we're still determining what that looks like. To your point on the providers, though, so like I said, devil's in the details, and I don't want to dive into the details too much because I can talk about it for hours. But each provider will have their own provider page. So it'll have like their bio, explanation of what they do, that sliding scale metric, as well as a bunch of other metrics in there as well. And then each modality, so let's say massage, acupuncture, sound baths, whatever, will have its own page and explain what it does. Because I feel like a lot of us don't know what it means. And our goal with all of these pages explaining what these modalities are is to make it in like a 5-year-old could read it and understand it, right? Because I can't tell you how many times I have this guy who does it's body work, but effectively in layman's term, it's massage. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But the first time I met him, I did not understand like 90% of what he's saying. But after the appointment, I felt better than I had ever had, like having a regular massage, right? So like I knew it was doing something, but I didn't know what like the words. And now I'm like, it's been a few months. I'm like, okay, I kind of understand like what he's talking about, but it's still a little too like over my head. So how can we explain things in such a way that you don't feel like it's over your head? On paper, at least, right? And we're going to try to educate our providers as much as possible in terms of like language, because the more approachable they can explain what they do is, the more likelihood that like someone else can like understand and grasp it and then benefit from it.
Right. And book a meeting, right? Which is kind of the whole thing. So yeah, so that's awesome. Okay. So I guess, what is your scope for the testing? And, are you seeking, participants? Are you, kind of in a beta type phase or going to be entering into that? Like, what's your dev cycle look like? What's your, kind of phasing? Basically, this is the call to action, right? It's like, okay, how do people sign up? How do people learn more? How does all that work? And what are you looking for?
Yeah. So we're determining the scope of the work right now. So scope just means like the amount of details that we're going to include effectively. So I should know that in the next couple of weeks. But the basic thing is what we're looking for is any health expert that is interested in getting more bookings, right? And we're not going to charge for it. You can sign up to be on the platform. There'll be like a form that you have to fill out with the details for the matchmaking system. And then that will be when somebody comes onto the website and does their thing, that will like match you based on compatibility. So we're looking for providers, and for people who want answers that haven't found answers. We're currently clarifying our target cohort, and I wish I could announce it, but I'm not ready to. But what I can say is it affects 50 to 60% of people in the US, which is really exciting. So meaning if you're like, hey, I want answers for things that I'm not getting answers to, you can come to our website and sign up. I only have one email that confirms that you're on the list right now. So don't worry, I'm not spamming you. I don't have time to. So we'll just be.
Sound like me. Yeah. And my marketing guy is always like, can we write some emails?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like, I will get to it, but it's not right now. So, meaning like, it'll just be important announcements. Like, hey, like we're ready to do focus groups, which is a part of it. And I'm working on some giveaways for focus groups, which is exciting. And then when we have a good amount of providers, then we will open the MVP for people to come in and test. And so we're looking for feedback and all of that stuff to make sure that, this is helping and filling a need, because that's ultimately what we're here for.
Right. That's awesome. That's totally awesome. I feel like we could talk about this a long time. I know you said you could. I definitely could. I like to ramble. I like to listen, and so it could just run on and on and on. But I mean, I think we got the core idea, in there. And I think that it's super cool. Like I said, I'm just personally very excited about it, even though I'm not looking for anything right now, because that's, I like to extrapolate things and look at the macro and stuff. And it's like, if you save 200,000 people 10 hours a month, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of time and energy and struggle, with the existing method. And, there are things out there, like everybody's become addicted to like Amazon reviews and things like that. It's like, oh, well, sort by customer review. Let me look at who's highly rated. And there's a sense in which things devolve into that, but this is a much more granular system. And so, you kind of say, okay, this is important to me. This is not really so important to me. And you kind of can screen a little bit more, other than like, oh, 5-star, A+ rated. Like, you remember eBay, it's like A++++, would buy from again, that kind of stuff. And it's like, what does that mean? Right. I mean, they shipped me a VHS tape. So there's definitely inherent problems and that kind of thing. And so having this level of detail and, getting into the minutia a little bit more, this is very exciting to me. I love systems. I'm a systems person, and so it's just awesome. So I'm a strong supporter of this. I have some providers that I will connect you to, and, hopefully that's a good thing all around. But okay, I'm going to stop rambling. Where is the website? What's the website that people go to sign up? And what else would you like to share kind of as we're wrapping up the episode today?
Yeah. So, the website is SAHA Collective.com. So SAHAcollective.com. And then you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at SAHA.collective. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn, but like less important. I'm primarily on Instagram because that's where everyone is apparently. Yeah. And then you can sign up onto the waitlist. You can follow us. I would recommend signing up to the waitlist. I think something I've learned generally for business owners, and something someone said, which I thought was fascinating, is social media is rented property. You don't own it. And actually my social media manager had her Facebook account hacked recently and has not been able, it's gone. And so she spent her, last however many years building her business on it. It's gone. So something that that's why people push waitlists so hard, is because they're not going to, or email signups. It's because once you have it, you have it. And it, if someone changes the algorithm, it's not gone.
Right. You can export it too, right? Even in the worst case, like your mail campaign system, something happens. Well, fine. You've got a backup copy of the emails. You can just stick it into a new provider and pick right back up where you left off. You might lose some email templates, but it's not the end of the world. You can still reach those people. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And then I think what I would like to say in closing, is that you are the only person you are stuck with for the rest of your life is something that I've been really learning and leaning into. And so a lot of us do a lot of things for other people and often at the sacrifice of our own health. But then we can't show up for those people as well because we're not in a great place ourselves. So what can you do today that takes care of yourself a little bit so you can show up better for people in the world around you? And that can be something small, like we were talking about before we started recording, like making sure you didn't forget to eat today. Or it can be something big, but just something to think about as we close out.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I have that exact conversation with clients. We're in the finance space and all that, and so it's like, I understand you like to be there for other people. I understand you want to, donate to charity, that kind of thing, but like, you also need to have a firm foundation for yourself, and like, will you be able to have a bigger impact over the course of your lifetime if your own finances are in order or if they're not? And I mean, the question answers itself, right? So just gotta prioritize things a little bit. But yeah, very, very important message. I'm glad that you shared that. I'm glad that we got a chance to reconnect and finish this interview out. It's a big thing. It's always hard to kind of pick back up where we left off and that sort of stuff. But I think we did a great job. So, yay us. But yeah, so that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Be here for another episode of The Price of Time here in the very near future. But in the meantime, do go sign up for the SAHA Collective mailing list and plug into that ecosystem because I'm expecting big things from this in the future. Thank you all so much.